All right, welcome everybody to Talkin' Investing. Today we have a very special guest. We have with us Sue Ennis from Hut 8. We've been patiently waiting to talk to Sue, as I'm sure she's been patiently waiting to get to the finish line here. So there's big news, as you guys know. So let me just start by turning it over to Sue. Thanks for coming back on the channel. If you want to just, I'm sure everybody knows who you are, but if you want to just spend a second and for those who don't know, let us know who you are and what you do.
Hey everyone, so thrilled to be back here. Lots to talk about. So I'm Sue. I'm head of IR here at the new Hut, which we're really excited to talk to you guys about. It's been almost a year that we've been trying to close this merger, and we finally closed it on Monday. We are now a US-based company running a little over 1 gigawatt of total global network hash rate, which is awesome. We've got an HPC business, a managed services business, which we can get into, still hanging on to our Bitcoin, a little over 9,000 on our balance sheet. That's a big part of our treasury strategy still, self-mining at 7.5 exahash, and then a hosting business. So we're going to get into all of it today, but yeah, welcome to the new Hut. And I'm really excited to finally get to talk to you guys about it.
Well, we're glad to have you here. And first of all, obviously, congratulations. I think that was a long road, and, you know, it's a massive merger. This has got to be the biggest merger in the space by a mile. And, you know, it's a lot of changes for the company. So I'm excited. You just kind of gave us a bullet point list, but I definitely want to dig into some of that a little bit more. I think there's a lot that you can help share with our audience to better understand exactly what you do. I'm going to ask you about managed services. So I know, you know, one of the slides in your portfolio talks about, and I kind of think of three things, which is, you know, the high performance computing, the Bitcoin mining, and then, you know, I know you guys now are a hosting service, but the managed services piece, can you start out by talking about, you know, what that is, what that looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So the managed services piece of this business is one of the killer apps, we think, in this new Hut world. And so what managed services is, it's effectively an end-to-end infrastructure, site optimization, site running, an end-to-end institutional infrastructure management company. So from basically building sites for customers, optimizing sites, running fleets, customer billing, getting customers, if the customer wants to have a hosting site, we do all of it end to end, A to Z. And it's institution focused. We currently have 2 partners right now in this program with us. They are 2 Fortune 200 renewable power partners and about 680 megawatts under this business. And so let's like zoom out a little bit. So if you're looking at, you know, what's a similar parallel business to this managed services business that kind of is the first of its kind in our industry, is you can look at the CBRE, the JLLs of the world. And our 3 customer targets for this business are, number 1, so institutions who want exposure to Bitcoin and want to finance projects, but want nothing to do with running projects themselves. So we see this, for example, in the general renewable industry space. You have institutions that want to finance wind projects, but they want someone to come in and actually build the wind sites and optimize the wind farms, etc. So we're basically doing this for Bitcoin and energy infrastructure management for institutions. Okay. And then the other customer for this business and sort of total addressable market that we're excited about is in the oil and gas and the renewable power player and in the renewable power provider space. So large enterprise renewable power providers that are looking for Bitcoin mining to help balance load and balance grids. We don't think that those Fortune 200 power providers, power players and grid operators are going to go and hire Bitcoin mining teams, source equipment themselves, run the fleets, do the customer billing, etc. That's where this business comes in. And then the third, and in the oil and gas space as well, because if you look at the recent reports from KPMG, MIT, World Economic Forum, mining as a solution for methane mitigation, the data is there, it looks good, and we've already seen ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips stand up proof of concepts using Bitcoin mining as a solution for mitigating methane. COP28 just wrapped. All anyone could talk about was methane mitigation. This is, again, where this managed services business comes in, because we do not think that ExxonMobil or the big oil and gas producers of the world, who now have effectively like a lot of pressure to mitigate methane. We don't think, again, they're going to go out and hire Bitcoin mining teams, procure equipment themselves. This is the customer that this managed services business serves. And then also smaller miners. So new infrastructure operators who want economies of scale, economies of scope. This is where this managed services business fits. So yeah, it's incredibly CapEx light, very nice margins, and incredibly scalable. So that's one piece of this new hut umbrella that we're pretty excited about. But we've still got mining, self-mining, still got hosting, still have a hodl. And yeah, it's a really exciting new world. And the fact that we're running a little over 1 gigawatt of total global network hash, that's like 1/15 of the total global network that we're now managing. US Bitcoin Corp also, last point before I'll let you take your next question, US Bitcoin Corp also were the winners in the Celsius bankruptcy assets. So that's another piece of the business that we're really excited about as well, with upside. So happy to get into all of it.
All right, good. You mentioned a few items on my list. So that was actually very enlightening for me, I will tell you. That's you talked about some massive addressable markets there. And I mean, so could we consider that almost kind of a turnkey solution for businesses? Is that what you're talking about? And then, you talked about methane recapture with the, oil and gas companies, stranded energy. Is that with the oil and gas a part of that, or is that something completely different? Because
yeah.
Go
So turnkey is a great way of putting it. And yes, all of what you just mentioned is within the wheelhouse of this managed services team. It's literally A to Z, end-to-end infrastructure construction, optimization, management, getting clients if that's what they need, if they decide they want to do hosting. All of that is within this wheelhouse of this team.
So you mentioned 680 megawatts there and over a gigawatt in total. I'll just, and obviously you're not going to know this, or maybe you will know specifically, but how much of that, at this point is operational and up and running? How much of that is, white space or whatever you want to call it, that, is capacity left to fill with new customers, et cetera?
Yeah, so 839 megawatts is operational and running. And I actually believe, I might have to get back to you on this, but it is 839 we have fully disclosed is operational and running. And then it's a very near-term path, like within like a couple months to being north of 1 gigawatt with the Celsius assets.
So, okay, well, that leads me right into one of my other questions. The Celsius assets, that whole situation, what's the status of that? And can you just expand a little bit for those who, haven't been keeping up, exactly what the evolution of that was, and where that goes from here?
Yeah, so the co-founders of US Bitcoin Corp, they are bankruptcy enthusiasts. So when a company goes bankrupt, they love to go through the filings and then go shopping, because these guys are big on price arbitrage, and so they love to get things at a discount. So they actually were able to start building their major portfolio of power assets initially when Compute North went bankrupt, and that's how we got the King Mountain site, where we run a portion of Marathon's hash rate. And so when Celsius was a company that went bankrupt, I believe it was last summer, or not this past summer, but this past year. And they had a mining business, they had a staking business, and then they had a huge portfolio of tokens. And so they ended up going bankrupt, and then Celsius partnered with a few other players to create this group called Fahrenheit Group and effectively go after these assets while they were in bankruptcy. And so they won the bid, and then part of the way that this new group that is running these bankrupt Celsius assets is structured is US Bitcoin Corp, aka New Hut, is actually going to be managing the mining machines of this entity, because instead of selling them off, the group decided that it actually made a lot of sense to plug them in and get them up and running. So there's 122,000 machines, 12 exahash worth of equipment, and right now about 8,500 is being run out of one of New Hut's sites in New York. And then there is, and this is still pending court approval. I think we're going to hear by the end of the but in a couple of weeks because we had to restructure a bit of pieces of the deal because the SEC didn't like the staking piece of this business. So we're getting rid of that. But yeah, we've got a pending contract for an extra 20 million in revenue every year just for managing these assets for Celsius. That's obviously not included in our S4 numbers that were released. So yeah, it's there's a lot of upside here, and we're pretty pumped about it.
So that's, yeah, that was a very high profile situation with Celsius, and I know they did a lot more things than people realized. So it sounds like this essentially for you guys is just a recurring revenue stream then going
Yeah.
forward, and there's sounds like maybe one last piece of approval that you guys did a little modification on. So are you still waiting for the final go? Is it all but done, or is it done at this point?
So we've won the bankruptcy assets. We have those assets; those are ours. But in
Okay.
terms of the actual structure of the new company, the SEC wanted us to focus a little bit more on making it a mining company versus a mining and a staking with a staking arm. And so then that final approval, the next date I think is in a couple of weeks that we're scheduled to go to court to talk about it. But like I said, we've got 8,500 of those 122,000 machines that are currently being hosted in our New York sites. So that's about 250 megawatts of hosting that we have. And again, yeah, we're pretty pretty excited about it. The other thing that's really great about our hosting business is that we do have two different contract structures. So one of them is just a pure hosting rate. And then another one that we have with clients is a rev share on hosting. So for example, clients pay a base rate, but then if hash rate starts to run up, if Bitcoin's running, we then get a piece of that revenue. So yeah, there's a lot of agility with this new hut and a lot of ways for us to capture upside, but also protect on the downside with steady, stable revenue. So yeah.
With the hosting piece, what portion of your overall business? I know from a megawatt standpoint, it's probably a large number, but from a revenue standpoint, is how significant is the hosting? And then I have a follow up after that.
Yeah, so from a megawatt standpoint, as I mentioned, we're doing about 250 in total right now. And then on a pro forma revenue basis, hosting is looking a little north of 16 million annually for us.
Okay, all right, and with the hosting, do you guys have uh, a lot of the Bitcoin mining companies that have been in hosting? I won't name any names, but some of them have struggled to turn that into a profit center. So,
Yeah.
do you guys feel like you've got that solved? Are you hitting the ground running? Are there fixed power purchase agreements? Is there I know you can only speak to whatever portion of that you can speak to, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I will say the September 30th numbers for US Bitcoin Corp, we're planning on filing those around the 19th or 20th of December. And in terms of, the structure of the PPAs, we haven't disclosed much about that just yet. But I can certainly tell you that, pre-merger US Bitcoin Corp was cash flow positive. They were absolutely, hitting the ground and up and running. And we look forward to being able to provide you guys with, consolidated views of what this new company looks like with operational reports, that sort of thing. So yeah, just stay tuned. Because we're definitely laser focused on getting you guys more data to look at.
So you said that would be later in December, December 19th. Is that the?
Oh yeah, around December 19th, 18th,
Okay.
19th, 20th, you will see audited September. We are going to file their US Bitcoin Corp's audited September 30th statements as well.
Okay, great. So, I can put that one on timeout for now. I think you've helped answer it, and we'll get more information. That's just around the corner. It's hard to believe. So, so we talked about hosting. We talked about your managed services. Before I get to the big one, which to me still is the Bitcoin mining, can we talk about high performance computing? And there's a couple of things going on there. You guys have already, a lot of companies are now getting involved in this. We keep seeing press release after press release. A lot of the Bitcoin mining companies, I think, are a little bit following in your footsteps. It seems like you guys were first. I know you had the 5 data centers. So, two-part question. The first would be, how are those going? Are those performing the way that you thought? Are you acquiring new customers?
Yeah, so those are going great. We did sign a very large government healthcare provider out of British Columbia, which is Western Canada, where some of our data centers are, and that was a really big. And we should start seeing that revenue in this quarter. So obviously, when we release this quarter's results, we should see that revenue show up. Um, the the big deal about that client in particular is that they are a government entity. And so that's kind of like a signal fund. When there's a government entity that says, hey, I trust these guys with my customers' data, that's kind of a big deal. And then we've also got financial services customers in there. We've got special effects, entertainment customers in there as well. And then I think, on a go forward basis, one other area that we think is really exciting is, and we released this in our S4, that the US Bitcoin Corp guys, they placed an order for 1,000 H100 NVIDIA AI GPUs. And obviously, AI is the big hot craze. And yeah, so we're pretty excited about that. I think we forecasted a spring delivery for those GPUs. And then, we'll certainly update you when we can as to what our plans are. We definitely have a plan. We just haven't told the market yet. But yeah, we're pretty excited about that too.
Okay, well, you read my mind. That was my follow-up question. I know that I saw in the presentation there. So that's 1,000, I think, of the H100 Nvidias. So that's high performance computing. That gets into the AI stuff. How does that compare size-wise? Those 1,000 to the existing high performance stuff that you're doing, like incrementally, how much more is that? And is that of a fundamentally different nature?
Yeah. So margin profile, yes, definitely. The upside there is much different. And like it's just a different structure than versus like an ASIC revenue profile. And then but from an actual power profile, you're looking at under 2 megawatts.
Right. So I think if I remember, there's like maybe 5.1 megawatts or something like that. That your entire current high performance computing is doing. So can you just talk a little bit about, because I know, especially myself and I think a lot of my subscribers and a lot of people that follow the Bitcoin mining companies, we're used to different numbers. And I know that a data center for high performance computing is just a very, very different thing than these Bitcoin mining data centers. So, you talked about, a gigawatt in total, but yet when we get to high performance computing, it's much, much smaller numbers as far as the amount of power goes. Can you just speak a little bit about what's the difference and how do we make sense out of, the scale between those two things?
Yeah. So I think the best area to first start looking at is if you look at what GPUs are being offered right now, rental rates. If you go to CoreWeave or AWS, you can see that GPUs are going for about $4.80. I believe it's about an hour was the most recent that I saw. And at one point, Amazon GPU rental demand was up to about $12. And so the margin profile is a lot different. And obviously the demand drivers are a lot different as well. And also the customers. So those are some of the nuances relative to like a mining ASIC. And again, we're going to disclose our plans in terms of where we plan to house these, as soon as we can. And we'll definitely update you on delivery timelines. So.
Okay. All right. Well, let's finally get to the thing that I think people most associate with Hut 8, which is your Bitcoin mining. So I'll start out with your hodl, since you mentioned that earlier. I know you guys have over 9,000. You may know the number off the top of your head on your balance sheet. You've had that position for, you've been holding for a long time. So I guess what I would ask you is, has anything changed now? You're post merger. I know yourself and Jamie have always been pretty adamant about that hodl strategy. What's what can you tell us about your strategy going forward?
Look, I can tell you that Jamie and I get in fist fights sometimes about the whole strategy because I'll run into her office and I'll be like, "We need to sell a bunch of Bitcoin, buy a bunch of AI machines right now," and she's like, beat it, hit the bricks." Jamie is so bullish on Hodl. And we did actually run quite a bit of math as of recently, given the fact that the halving event is coming up in May of this year. And historically, how Bitcoin price has run, given the fact that spot ETFs, it looks like we're going to see hopefully our first round of approvals on January 10th. We think it would be a little silly to sell Bitcoin right now. But even if that wasn't happening, I'm pretty sure Jamie would still be a hodler. She is a Bitcoin maxi through and through. And we plan on continuing to add to that stack and continuing to leverage that stack and ideally put it back to work as soon as, as soon as we've identified the right way to do that. In the last bull market, we were earning yield on a portion of our stack. And if you look at things like what's happening with the Lightning Network, potential derivative strategies, there is a lot that we can do with this stack. And again, we certainly anticipate that it's going to go up and to the right. And we want to make sure that, hanging on to that is accretive to our business and like a really meaningful part of our post-merger treasury strategy.
So prior to the last go around, I know you guys were getting some yield. Some bad actors, I think, were flushed out of the system, and a lot of people kind of pulled back on getting yield. A year or two ago, just based on some of the uncertainty. Do you think that's going away, and you're getting more clarity, and there's other safer options to getting yield on your hodl?
Yeah, I definitely do think that I mean, like, look, maybe it's a portion of our stack. We end up becoming one of the largest lightning node operators. Maybe certainly these past couple of years have fleshed out a lot of the bad actors, and we are seeing a lot more TradFi participate in the space. So again, we're certainly watching things as they develop. And like I said, the intention is to put this back to work once we identify the right way to do that.
What are you thinking with so you mentioned a couple of big events going on in the Bitcoin universe. Obviously we've got the halving 4 or 5 months away, and then we've got the spot ETF. You mentioned January. I know a lot of people are circling that on their calendar as one of the higher probabilities. Is that affecting your internal strategy? I know you kind of just mentioned that Jamie's pretty set on holding your Bitcoin. Is there any other things internally that affect your what your decision making is based on two potential big catalysts or changes in the Bitcoin universe?
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly one of the things that outside of those two big catalysts, one of the things that Mike and Asher, the co-founders of US Bitcoin Corp, are very good at is opportunity arbitrage. So identifying areas where there may be price dislocation and going deep and pulling the trigger on them, which again, as I said earlier, they love going shopping when there's a bankruptcy. Compute North, now Celsius. One of Mike's claim to fame is not paying more than $35 a terahash in the last bull run. And if you look at the rest of us, we were all paying north of 50. So that, I think, bringing their operational expertise, bringing their lens in terms of how they structure deals, how they do deals, they're more focused. They often like to do deals more on a JV level so that there's no parent recourse. That's something that they look at. I think that is the stuff that we're really excited about. But in terms of our strategy, yeah, we're super cognizant of the fact that there are two very, very near-term catalysts for Bitcoin price appreciation, which is why we're, continuing to double down on HODL is the way to go.
A few other companies recently in their quarterly press conferences came right out and mentioned that they're looking at potential acquisitions. They think there's going to be opportunities at the halving that some of the smaller companies maybe aren't going to make it out the other side of this. Is that something that you guys have on your radar as inorganic growth?
Yeah, inorganic growth is certainly still on the horizon.
Okay. And then, so the flip side of that would be organic growth. Obviously, you just, with this merger, just grew in, four different ways with multiple revenue streams. You drastically increased your exahash. Is there any, you know, is that something you guys are looking to continue to do? This jumped you back up to 7.5 exahash, I think, from a Bitcoin mining standpoint. Is there a growth strategy that you can share? And without getting too specific, is that are you looking at organic growth as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Organic growth is also on the horizon. We did disclose in the S4 that there is quite a bit of greenfield and brownfield opportunity at our existing sites. Hut 8, we also disclose a couple, I think it's almost a couple months now, our stalking horse bid for 4 power plants here in Ontario. And so we're going to know within the next couple days whether or not, and that's 310 megawatts worth of power here in Ontario. And we're going to know within the next couple days as to whether or not anyone else has thrown their hat in the ring. And then we should have a decision by the court by the end of December. So that's another potential 310 megawatts of power that we would have to build high performance computing centers, AI center, like AI compute focused data centers, or mining as well. So yeah, there's a lot of catalysts on the horizon. And I think as an investor, one of the ways that I would look at Hut now is sort of like the Berkshire Hathaway of Bitcoin and energy infrastructure. And so what do I mean by that? New Hut now, you have New Hut, the parent company, but then we've got these business lines. You have Hut 8 HPC, Hut 8 mining, Hut 8 hosting, maybe Hut 8 power if we win these Validus assets and be a vertically integrated miner, and then Hut 8 Hodl. Well, Hodl actually is more of our treasury strategy, and then Hut 8 managed services, which again is like the CBRE, JLL. Those two companies are trading at 19, like forward 19 PE multiples. So that's effectively how we're setting up this company. And what we like about it is that all these different sort of brands have various catalysts for growth, but are also like simultaneously designed to capture upside but mitigate volatility on the downside, because a lot of them are stable recurring fiat based revenues. And yeah, that's why we think this is the killer strategy going into the next halving.
You mentioned the 310 megawatts. I wanted to jump on that, and I just have to check my notes for a minute. But that's something. The stalking horse bid is something I've been paying attention to. That's a part of the North Bay situation. So
Right.
I know for a lot of people and a lot of my viewers at the time, that was very frustrating, I'm sure, for you guys. And, it seemed like it was a long drawn out process. But I mean, to me, and I tried to mention this a few times with this stalking horse bid. So, I don't know that that's a guarantee at this point, but it sounds like you may end up with, energy infrastructure to the extent of 310 megawatts. So in addition to all the other things that you just mentioned, I mean, isn't that literally basically just energy infrastructure? You could sell energy as well. Is that a part of the potential plan there? And it sounds like that's the timeline on that is not very far away from now.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so being able to sell energy also is part of the upside of that potential deal closing as well, which is great. And yeah, so the genesis of us going after these assets was, we did initially have Far North in our North Bay in our power portfolio, our mining site portfolio. But then, there was certainly a contract dispute with the owners, Validus, of that North Bay site. And I think we had about 30 megawatts worth of mining infrastructure stood up and plugged in. And then we had to subsequently unplug it. And then, yeah, I mean, this is how Jamie, our CEO, rolls. So Validus ended up going bankrupt. And Jamie said, you know what? I want my North Bay site back, and I want all of your sites. So she quadrupled down on their portfolio. And yeah, so we're going after the 4 of them, and we'll see in the next couple of weeks if we get them.
Well, good luck with that. I know there's got to be some special feeling of success, flipping that situation around like you guys did, because that was a tough one. But
Look, this is what Jamie does best. She's big into transformation projects. And she's resilient as hell. So yeah, she she was going for what she wanted.
I got you. Well, it looks like you're knocking on the door. So we'll, by the next time we talk, hopefully you'll know the answer to that one as well. You guys are on the precipice of being able to give a lot more information on a lot of these items. So I think that just speaks to the fact that you have an unbelievable amount going on right now.
Yeah.
So the other thing I was going to ask you, and again, I'm just checking my notes. Let's see. I'm blanking out the name, but you guys have a facility right now that you've had some trouble in Drumheller, right? Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, that's right.
So
so Drumheller is in Alberta. It's one of our oldest sites. Anyone who's been following the hut story for more than a year or even more than 6 months knows that Drumheller has been a major headache for us. Because it's an older site, there's been a ton of problems with some of the archaic or the more antiquated nature of the infrastructure around that site. And look, now we finally can get Hut 8 Bitcoin Corp, US Bitcoin Corp's managed services team in there to focus on site optimization, the plan for the site going forward, perhaps upgrading the infrastructure, figuring out, the best path forward. Is it shutting it down? Is it repurposing it to XYZ? That's what they're very, very good at. And have done for other power providers, and they're now going to be doing for us. And we weren't able to really go full forward with that team prior to closing this merger, because that would have been seen as potentially as gun jumping by the SEC. So we needed to be super mindful of that. But guys, we're not confused. That site is a freaking problem. And so we are now fixing that site. That's the plan. And we've now got the resources and the operational expertise to do that. So, and this has been Jamie's plan the whole time. So, yeah, it's business time. 2024, you are absolutely going to see a new hut.
Well, and I'm glad you just said something, because it answers a lot of questions that I've received. A lot in my comments section was, well, why don't they just, get with USBTC and, either get that fixed or move your machines elsewhere. But it sounds like, from a regulatory standpoint, that would have been premature.
Yeah, we would have been handcuffed. We were handcuffed. And obviously we want to be on the right side of regulators, so we weren't able to do anything. But now that we're a combined force, it's business time. So
fantastic. So we'll yet to come. We'll see what happens. So is that a part of the 7.5 exahash right now, or the machines, or the facility?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we still have a little over 6,000 machines that we unplugged in North Bay that are not operational right now. So as soon as we find out what happens with these Validus assets, we could potentially have a home for those machines. Or again, there's a lot of different sites to work with now, and so we'll leave it up to the operations guys to decide where we should plug in those machines.
Okay. All right, I can tell you've been making the circuit, because you've answered most of my questions in rapid succession. So
yeah, well, I'm excited that I can finally talk more candidly with you guys. And like I said, the next priority for us is making sure that we, get out the information that you guys need so that you can see what this new combined business looks like. Like we said, the September 30th financial statements for US Bitcoin Corp are going to be filed hopefully around the 3rd or 4th week of December, hoping we can get those operational reports out for you guys. And yeah, just really excited to get going.
So the next operational report, will you continue to do as you have in the past, and as most of the Bitcoin miners are doing, monthly operational reports? So, in January, can we expect to see like the whole new hut universe in your monthly operational update?
So obviously I can't disclose anything that's not publicly disclosed yet, but I can certainly tell you that yes, the intention is to make sure that you guys have the data so that you can see what we're doing and how we're executing.
All right. Well, what did I miss?
I think we covered most of it. I think more importantly, let's get some data out there. Would love to come back on and have Mike and Asher, the co-founders of US Bitcoin Corp, to join me, speak to your audience so you guys can get to know them as well. They are legends. And yeah, let's take it from there.
All right. You guys are. So, if I can just ask you one more question, you mentioned right off the top, almost the first thing you said, is you are now a U.S. company.
Mhm.
Was that just a byproduct of the fact that that you have a lot of locations in here? And I'll just give you a few of my thoughts. Does that open up access to potentially more institutional investors? I know with the way you guys have done, and maybe some of this you can't address, but the way that you've done your stock, you're now a $10 stock, give or take, and obviously hopefully that goes up from here. That crosses that threshold for some institutional investors. Was there any other strategy to be a U.S. company, or was that just not a significant piece of your thought process?
Well, I think certainly the benefit for us becoming a US company, and it wasn't an intentional move. I mean, we could have stayed a Canadian company with a ton of US assets because we were already listed on the NASDAQ.
Right.
But now that we're a US based company, we're actually now eligible for indices like the Russell 2000, where our peers, Mara, Riot, CleanSpark, they're all there. And we haven't been eligible for it because we've been a Canadian listed company. And so if you look at, I think it's June 17th or 23rd of every year is one of the most active trading days in the market. And that's when the Russell 2000 does their rebalance. And they're a snapshot of the global, of the small cap market in the US. So the fact that we're now potentially eligible for an indice that an extraordinary amount of funds and pension plans and ETFs build their mandates off of is very meaningful for us. And best believe I'm stalking those Russell 2000 guys and making sure, that they at least know who we are. And obviously to get into the indice, it's also based on market cap and liquidity, et cetera. But the fact that we're now eligible is another big driver, we think, for demand.
Well, I'm glad you were able to mention that at all. I wasn't sure how much you'd be able to say on that, but that's kind of what I had in my head. You're a prime candidate for the Russell 2000, so
Like,
knock on wood, we'll circle that date and see what happens. So I guess I'll just wrap it up. Congratulations! I know this was a long journey for you guys, and I know a lot of people may have gotten exhausted, inside of your organization, and certainly investors and all that stuff. But this is the exciting part now. So congratulations, and definitely I would love to have you guys back. And as information comes out, we can keep everybody updated. And sounds like a lot of good things ahead.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, and pumped to be back with your audience. And yeah, we'll chat then.
Okay, thanks so much, Sue. Have a great day.
Bye.